Yes, so thank you everyone for coming. I am not Su Yang. I myself and Carolyn Deanda and Jason Thomas are subbing for Sue today. Unfortunately, she's not feeling real well. So she let us know this morning that she couldn't make it, but we are very equipped to go on with the session, and I'm sure that you'll find some things very beneficial as we're going into spring. So I have her slides, and then I added a few other things to it around the creating community and connection among students in Canvas. So I hope that all of you feel a little more comfortable as you're going into the spring than last fall. It feels like there's less tension. But just know that the Department of Distance Ed is here to help support you in whatever ways that you need. So thank you, Carolyn and Jason, for joining us, and Megan and Jennifer for helping with the technical aspects of the presentation. So with that, I'm going to go forward and do a little bit of housekeeping or setting the table, whatever analogy you'd like to use. Oh, sorry, I'm showing you my norms. So in this session, it's going to be recorded. So if you want to visit later, feel free. You don't need to rush to write down a bunch of information unless that's your way. And then the format for this is that we're going to use chat for questions. I've asked Carolyn and Jason that if there is a question that fits into what we're talking about that the group would benefit from, let's go ahead and we'll try to answer those as we're moving along here. This is a really large group, so it would be difficult for us to do breakout rooms or those sorts of activities, but we're certainly going to be offering an engaging session today. We're also going to take notes to follow up to add any topics into our workshops. You may be familiar with our boot camp, where we have exercises that we had last fall in order to prepare for the marathon of spring. And we're going to keep working out because, you know, fitness doesn't just happen. It's not one and done. It's something that requires maintenance. So that's what we'll be offering. Part of the foundation for this particular session is from this Faculty Focus article entitled 5 Ways to Build Community in Online Classrooms. And I like the article because it's very succinct and has those 5 ways, but we're going to be weaving those into the session today as well. Part of running a virtual workshop or a virtual classroom is setting norms. And I haven't seen a lot of this happen for meetings or others, but maybe you do this. We kind of assume that those who are attending the presentation or the class session already know what they're doing, and to assume that they can read our minds as far as how we'd like the course to run, you know, it's better to be upfront about those things. So for the norms for this particular session, I provided some examples. One would be to advise everyone to mute their speaker when they're not talking. If you haven't learned the shortcut, if you wanted to unmute yourself very quickly and temporarily, like a walkie-talkie, you just hold down the space bar. You guys can go ahead and try that. You can sing or something. Hold down the space bar and then you can speak.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Hello, everyone.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Yeah, so that's just a quick way, and so you might want to share that with your students too, if you'd like that. Then it's see how much easier it was than to find your mouse and click over the right, Martha? I know it's crazy that way. So and also if you want to rename yourself, and many of your students will want to do that. Their names in Canvas are their legal names. And so sometimes their preferred name creates more of a community and a comfort level in the classroom. But you would need to show them how to do that by clicking the participants button. You can see I have it circled down here. And then also to show the raise your hand feature. I don't want to make the same, I want to model what I'm advocating here as far as the raising the hand and showing you where that's at. If you click on participants, you can go to your name and then you can raise your hand, you can thumbs up, thumbs down. You also have the ability in the reactions. This is an older screenshot. The reactions down at the bottom of the screen there where it says reactions and it's a smiley face with a plus sign on it or a bow. I guess it's a female smiley face. There's reactions in there. Hey, yeah, people are raising their hand. And then you'll need to lower your hand. You've been in meetings where folks are like, oh, did you have a question? You're like, no, I'm past that. So lowering your hand is also something to advise students on. Very good. Thumbs up. Yeah. They've added a couple of different reactions too, you know, surprise and celebrating, things like that. And then also advise folks that they need to speak clearly. That's a good reminder for us as well, because if you're using captioning, it only picks up as well as we speak, right? So you might want to be mindful of that. Advise the participants that when a breakout room comes up, that they should click that invitation. It's a little bit, I'm much more used to this, but the first few times that I was sent out into a breakout room, I was really nervous, like, oh, what's going to be like when I get there and how will I come back? And there's anxiety there. And so if you set the norms and then just do a breakout with your students and show them that unlike waving your wand in Harry Potter, they may disappear, but they'll come back. So you might want to just try that out and set some expectations for those breakout rooms too. When your students go into them, don't just send them off into this micro abyss and say, oh yeah, have fun. So we're gonna show you an example towards the end of this presentation about assigning a timekeeper and a recorder for a breakout session and sending folks away with a very clear question, very clear expectations. As I said, this group is really large, so we're not going to raise our technology or our perspiration factor by putting a big bunch of big breakout rooms together. So with that, in setting the norms and giving people clear expectations, we're going to have a small icebreaker. And many of you may already use these, but if you don't, we're going to demonstrate that for you as well. I also have a resource for you that has over 21 different types of icebreakers that you can use with your students. But at this time, I'd like you to think about what your campus mascot was in grade school and how does this mascot personify or not some aspect of your personality, and have you put that in chat so that we can see. So if I were to say that, you know, my mascot was a ram, I would talk about my personality of being to persevere like a ram up a mountain. So I'll give you a few minutes in chat to post. I have to scroll down here. Did I write right grade? Where? Oh, grad school. Good. Yeah, when you were doing your master's program, or you can choose any. It's not graded. Bulldogs, yes, of course. A tiger, patient and strong. Eagle's a good one, huh? Wildcats, yes. Hornets, is that Sacramento? It has to be. I'm a Hornet too. What is Stanislaus State's mascot? Do you know, Jason?
I do not.
I don't either.
Isn't it? I have like an image of it in my head.
And I'm an alumni from there. Come on. Anyone know?
It's Titus the Warrior.
Oops. Titus?
That's what Google says. Yeah.
Okay. That's good to know. See, learned something already in this presentation. A tree, really, too? Seagulls, yeah. Fantastic. You're probably able to see some folks that have the same mascot as you do, because I'm seeing a lot of different ones in here.
Jody, I saw something unusual. Herbie the Husker.
Is that like a husky dog?
No, it's a corn. It's a corn cob.
Fantastic. Yeah, that's great. 1,000. Wait, I see an opportunity for $1,000. $1,000. Anyone who can identify. Just scroll through a Jayhawk. What kind of money is that? It's chocolate money. I'll go do a search now. It's very good, very fun. And not only is an icebreaker a good way to break the anxiety of a class meeting, but you get to learn about each other. And notice how I was giving plenty of time for folks to post in the chat. We do have a tendency to do that. We instructors in the classroom or in the online environment is to not give people enough time to think and type and unmute and find their reaction. So get comfortable with pauses like that so that everyone has a chance to participate. That might be part of your norm too, is that making sure that everyone gets to participate and committing yourselves to that. There's also other netiquette that you could share with your students, and not in a dictatorial type of way, but in a way that makes folks feel comfortable and builds that trust in an online environment, because it does take trust. You know that even in a face-to-face classroom, to speak up and ask questions takes a certain amount of bravery and self-efficacy. So moving on, for the benefit of icebreakers that I just kind of rattled off for you, Lansing Community College made a really great list here of the benefits of icebreakers. And as I mentioned, there is a resource in the faculty hub where there's 21 different icebreakers that you can use for hybrid, online, face-to-face, what have you. There's also an icebreaker in the faculty hub. Before I knew we were doing this today, it was to select an image that represents how you're feeling, or something about your life. No words, just an image. And we know that students of a certain age really like that, with GIFs and memes and all of those things. So, harness what they're most comfortable with and give them a chance to express themselves. Whoops. So how can we still build connections and foster community online? Geez, sorry about that. And why should we? Why should we be concerned about building a community in our classrooms? Well, the reason for that is because if you look at adult learning theory, which is based on Garrison's community of inquiry, you'll find that having these three areas of presence are really necessary for an effective learning environment for adult learners. The equity presence over here is added from Harrison Wood, who did, gosh, I don't remember what year, maybe it was 2 years ago, where they presented at Convocation, really focused on equity mindedness and an equity presence. I know that there's other sessions today on that, so I'm not going to emphasize that in particular, but I do want to recognize that that is part of Garrison's community of inquiry that's been added on. The community of inquiry that he published was way back in 1999. So of course there have been additions to it, but the longevity of this study and the other studies that have built upon the community of inquiry are solid. So here you have social presence, cognitive presence, teaching presence, all three of those, and then some overlapping here in selecting content, setting the climate, supporting discourse, and then educational experience is in the middle. And then equity mindedness is not only in the content, but also the pedagogical practices that include equity-minded practices. Miriam Valentino is going to be presenting a flex session later on that exact topic. So I hope that you'll get a chance to attend that one. Then as far as the community of inquiry for this session, gosh, it would take a long time to cover all of those. So we're just going to take a really small bite today. So as far as the social presence, that is connected to building inquiry and trust in the online environment. It's true for face-to-face as well. So the things that we talk about today can be overlapped, whatever modality you're teaching in. But when you talk specifically about the online environment, it's very different when it's asynchronous. Traditionally, we have a history of oral communication, right? The whole foundation of lecture and the Socratic method is all the oral tradition, where you can have voice inflection, you can have immediate interaction with folks. But teaching online is really heavily text-based. Incorporating oral can happen with recordings and some synchronous sessions, but the majority of it is text-based. And there really is quite a difference in those two. And you may have experienced that in your teaching or in meetings that you've been in, or emails that you've received that have a different tone to them than probably the person intended. So it has to be very strategic and intentional when you're working with text-based communication. And that can be supported through netiquette, and again, setting the table of expectations so that everybody's on the same page. Both oral and text, they do have pros and cons, but when we are using text-based communication online, it's also important to have your material easily accessible by students and for them to know where to go to get that information. We have a couple of templates in the Faculty Hub as well that have the structure for a homepage, and then for having your course organized by modules or by week, however you manage that. But part of that structure is giving students a roadmap for where we're going, and also how to drive down that roadmap. So when we have an oral communication, you assume that you're reaching all students that are in front of you. But in both the in-person and online environment, you know that we have a variety of students in our classrooms. It's important to recognize that not one size fits all. And when it comes to the online environment, we have the opportunity to create multiple streams of sharing our discipline expertise and also getting students involved in that. Learning is not a passive practice, is it? It's not that we can, turn a student's head to the side and pour in, the topic that you might be presenting in history or something of that nature. For learning to happen, there has to be a process of working with that material and an intention to get to achieve the learning outcome that you have created, right? So it's very strategic. We know that in our classrooms that we have students who already love our subject. Those are usually our favorite, but you also have those in your course that don't love your subject yet. Coming from the arena of teaching college history for 17 years, on the first day, I would often ask my students, I don't know you yet, but how many history haters do we have in this room? And a few brave souls would raise their hand, but I would tell them that I'm going to do my best to change their impression and encourage them to find something that connects them to history. Because when something is meaningful or we enjoy it, we tend to remember it more. We also have to recognize that in our classrooms, we have students from different cultures. And if you, I don't know if you're familiar with Zarita Hammond's book on culturally responsive teaching in the brain. She talks about the influence of culture on the way students approach learning. You have those that value independent acquisition of knowledge. Americans tend to be very much like that, white Americans. And then you have those from cultures that prioritize leveraging a group or a community for gaining or building their knowledge, working with the material. They work more effectively with others than being stalled in a expectation they should be individually learning. So it's important to have both opportunities for them. And then of course you have those who have been marginalized in one or more ways, that their self-efficacy does not give them the bucket to pick themselves up when they have fallen, or to see a poorly graded assignment as something that they can work through and get back up and power through it. We know that many of our students are first generation. In fact, many of you are. And most of the time, we had somebody who believed in us, that gave us that support, that if we did fall down, we could get back up. If we did fail something, it didn't mean that we were failures, but that doing so is part of the learning process. If you don't have that self-efficacy, then the wounds of poor performance in the very beginning of a class can defeat those that do not have a foundation to keep going. When you're teaching online, your students have to choose to go online and engage with your material. And isn't it much more appealing when you know that you're welcome and that it's an environment of trust and that you have a personal interest in the topics? For example, if I was assigning, I don't know, a Google slide presentation on a topic in history, I could assign everyone the same topic with very strict parameters, and it would be very, very boring to grade, to be honest. I made those mistakes early in my career. Or I could set a wider parameter and have students choose a topic that they would be interested in. It might be something connected to their culture. It may be the biography of a mathematician if they're interested in math. But the point is that students, in order to come into your classroom, have to feel that they're welcome and be excited about that. And that's what's so cool about the beginning of the semester, right? You have students who are all excited. I'm ready to go. I've got all my books and I'm online, and we want to keep that going. One of my very favorite colleagues down from Glendale, her name's Fabiola Torres. And she has taught me a lot about engagement. And she has kind of a unique play on it. She says that teaching online is similar to online dating. Now, before you think that that's a really bad comparison, it could be online dating or virtual relationships. Right now, we very much rely on virtual contact. So when she makes that analogy, she's emphasizing that we're trying to get students to fall in love with our discipline, like we love it. And the way that we know that someone is thinking of us, or that they that we feel that we matter to them, is when they reach out virtually. They use our names. We get to hear their voice in a recorded message, maybe when you grade something. When you reach out and say, hey, how are you doing? I noticed you weren't in class, or something of that regard. And of course, we have Starfish that can help you to reach out to students. But the more you know them, the more you can recognize and support academic integrity in your course rooms as well. So again, none of this happens by accident. A lot of times, if we're filling in for someone, we can wing it, right? If you were assigned a class right now in your discipline that was online for Monday, you could wing it, especially if it's in person, right? You show up, my lecture stuff, ready to go here. But when it's online, you don't get that chance to wing it. It does need to be very strategic and designed. And regrettably, I think that many folks have found that technology is getting in the way of their discipline expertise. And for that, I really want to encourage that we can move beyond that the technology doesn't have to get in the way. So here are some other pointers about creating an effective community. I'm going to just pause for a second. Jason or Carolyn, was there any questions or comments that you'd like to bring into the session?
Jody, I think there aren't really a lot of questions right now, but Matt Brown made a really good comment. Just because you can't do something now does not mean you won't be able to do something later. Really positive.
That is so true. I'm going to ask a question too, and you can just raise your hand or thumbs up, whatever you'd like to do in reaction. But how many of you have heard of Garrison's Community of Inquiry? For adult learning theory. Deanna? Yeah. I can't actually see everyone, so.
We have a few people raising their hand or thumbs up.
Okay. Yeah, it's, again, there's times in meetings and also in class where we assume about our audience that they know, they already have this foundational knowledge. And we are very well versed in our disciplines, and we're also very versed in how to be a student, but our students are not at that place. It's really good to find out where they are. Have you been in meetings where they use a lot of acronyms and you're like, oh, yeah, I know what that is. But you feel too embarrassed to ask. Like the presenter assumes that I know what DE stands for. Oh, that's distance education. So finding out where people are students who are at multiple levels. of understanding of college experience is really, really helpful. Because making assumptions about who's in the room and who your audience is really shuts some people out. So with the community of inquiry, I want to encourage you because I guarantee you'll be seeing that more. If you go to a session on equity, if you take any of those parts and certification from @ONE, the community of inquiry is used in there a lot. So getting comfortable with that also gives you confidence to know that what I'm building and how I'm assessing my students is founded in evidence-based research. That's why it works. It's less of a trial and error. But again, it's a focus on teaching and not on tools. It's a focus on your discipline and how do you get students to be engaged with that and ultimately learn or demonstrate their learning. So in creating a welcoming environment, as you're moving towards the beginning of the semester on Monday or later than that or halfway through that, I don't know, people are starting at all different times this semester, but there's always a chance to create a welcoming environment and provide students with that overarching roadmap of where the course is going. And I don't mean by having, a page of modules and go, okay, this is what we're all going to digest this semester. That's very intimidating. But providing a welcome letter or a welcome video for your students and giving them that that motivation, that comfort that you care, that you're excited about your discipline, and you're eager to share that with them. So in the templates I was mentioning too, you'll find in there that the encouragement is that you give a summary at the beginning of the week. Here's what where we're going, if it's a module or if you're going by week, depending on how you organize that. But letting students know where we're going. Think about planning a road trip. Let me see, I just have a little fantasy here about traveling to Florida. Why not? One of you is in Florida. Let's say that I was going to pack up my children and go to Florida on vacation. We wouldn't just go, right? There's a lot of prep to do. I have to find somebody to look after my dogs. I have to pack. I have to book a hotel and so on. There's so much prep. But ultimately, I know that we're going to Florida and it's going to be great when we get there. But without planning and knowing we're going there, what if I didn't tell my boys, oh, we're going to Florida? Just no, trust me, we're going somewhere. That's what you can do in your classroom. Give your students that comfort that this is where we're going in small chunks. And then you'll find that they're more eager to go along for the ride. Providing them that support too and resources to help them along the way is really critical. Part of what you can do to create this welcoming environment is that you can share your teaching philosophy, how and why you like teaching. It's that passion and that love of our discipline that is really intoxicating at times for students. That eagerness to learn, and they're learning from an expert in science, math, English. And it's not from a foundation that, well, I know more than you, so therefore worship me. It's not, learning doesn't happen that way. So it's sharing, why do you like your topic? Why do you like teaching? What is it about the discipline that brought you into teaching? Because again, many of our students are first generation college students, and they will see you or one of your colleagues or more than one of your colleagues, including you, as a model, as a role model, really. if we had more time, I'd have some of you share your stories about that. I'll just share mine with you. So first generation college student, my parents didn't expect much of me at all. As an only child, and they were not prepared to be parents at 20. Probably because I was conceived at a Doors concert, but that's a whole nother story. But they did not want to be parents. And so they did not have high expectations for me, and therefore I didn't for myself. A couple of years out of high school, my girlfriend asked if I would take a class with her at Modesto Junior College, and I said, sure. So we took 10 Key and of course, human sexuality. I mean, I was 20. So it was in those two classes though that I became more interested in going to school. And I really like watching movies. So I took a film appreciation class. And, you know, there's a component of writing in there. And I'll never forget when that teacher read my summary of Chinatown. I told you I'll never forget it. And how that made me feel that I belonged, that I was good enough. And it was like a drug. You know, I wanted more of it. I wanted to do better. I wanted to be recognized. And so luckily I had professors that kept fueling that in me all the way through Modesto Junior College, through Stanislaus and the Titans, and through Sacramento State, and then ultimately through to earn a PhD. So we have that power. We have that, that blessing that we can inspire students by including them and seeing them and respecting and appreciating what they can bring. And that means sharing of ourselves as well, with boundaries, of course, but you know what I mean. Is there anything in the chat? I just want to pause and make sure that culture, yes. I will provide a list of, for the biography as well, if that will help. Okay. Yes, more about the slides, right? First week. Oh, yes. Thank you. Yes, please do in the chat. Please share things that you do to foster engagement and community in the classroom. It's exciting, right? I would always have dreams the night before of the classroom experience and what it's going to be like, and welcoming everyone back. But sometimes, sometimes those dreams were not that great. Going into the wrong classroom, you know, hey, at least that can't happen online, right? We'll make sure your names are all attached to your sections. But yeah, those bad dreams can seem so real, but most of the time they were very exciting. So again, that welcoming environment, letting students know that you want them to engage in the material, that teaching and learning happens when teaching and learning are both going on at the same time. So letting them be a part of that experience is really, really important. And I'm sure many of you are already doing these kinds of things and looking at what works well and where you might be able to change what you were doing last fall when many of you were just trying to survive. And congratulations, you did. Look, you're still here. But this spring, you know, as you move your first home of your courses into the new spring home, we're here to help you to organize them so that the content in the design really complements your discipline expertise, right? Because again, that technology getting in the way is just so annoying. Again, for this teaching and learning to happen at the same time and to get students, I took over this slideshow. I'm so sorry it keeps advancing on me. I didn't know she had those on there. But again, I added some myself too. So, so forgive me for that. I'm not perfect. I don't know if any of you came into this thinking that Sue or I was perfect, but surprise, we're not. But helping students to make the connection. Yeah, there's going to be opportunities for you to attend more workshops in what we offer in DE or in other areas. And what you should be thinking about is not only how do I bring and connect students into the online environment, but how many ways do I give them to work and choose how to learn the topics that you've presented for them. There's also ways to enhance both the oral and the text-based communication. Our awesome facilitators share their effective practices and how to use some of the tools that we have available, digital tools. Because using a tool, it might make you feel really cool at first, like, oh, I use Flipgrid. Okay, how do you use it? How does that help your students learn? What do you use it for? And then once you use Flipgrid, how do you evaluate and make that experience better the next round? So you'll notice here that I'm not talking about tools. I'm talking more about pedagogy, which you don't need tools for, but they can enhance your teaching, the effectiveness, the engagement, the excitement. So for students, we know that many of them do not feel connected. We know that to the college. They don't want to learn online. In fact, we have a high percentage of students who are not coming back until we're face-to-face. And that, I'm sure you can relate, that really saddens me, because a lot of times when people stop going, they stop, they don't come back. So if we can do things to make them feel valued and excited about learning our discipline, it's good for us and it's good for them. I don't know about you, but I'm super uncomfortable with a monologue, and I feel like that's what I'm doing today. I'd rather have engaging conversations. I've never really been one to enjoy just the straight up lecture format, because at the end of it, I wouldn't know if they understood what I said, without giving them an opportunity to not only interact, but respond to what was happening or what we were talking about. So there are some tools that can enhance these active engagement opportunities, and Canvas is really fantastic. Even in SpeedGrader, you can record just a brief, hey, I really enjoyed your essay. I didn't know, blah, blah, blah. I don't know. Or, wow, you solved that mathematical equation, and that was really tough for most of my students. I don't know, I don't teach math. But, I'm not here to advise you in your discipline expertise. That's your thing. I can give some feedback in teaching history, but that's about it. But you can also find a YouTube video, or have your students find a YouTube video to share that demonstrates what they've been learning. We can find a lot of examples from our K-12 students. I know I see things that my high schoolers are doing that I'm like, wow, that's a really fantastic assignment, where they've had to create to demonstrate their learning. I always find it's much easier to do when they have structure to create that presentation. But for the most part, they enjoy it. They enjoy it. They enjoy working with the material, and I love to see that. So helping students to make that connection, and it's not just in an icebreaker. It could be at the very beginning of you're having a synchronous session, or having a discussion board, kind of a check-in with your students partially through the semester. I thought my dog was going to fall off of the chair right now, so I'm sorry about that. Don't fall off. So again, creating that connection with your students throughout the semester. Our semesters are so darn long, right? Even we get tired of ourselves after 17 weeks. So having students be part of co-creating your course is really exciting too. This also means creating unstructured opportunities. I know that I said that it has to be very strategic and planned, and I don't mean that it has to be inflexible, right? If you notice that your students struggled with a particular topic, ask them, what would have helped you to learn about that topic, or demonstrate the learning, or complete the assignment. Ask them, trust them that they will give you answers like, I didn't know where to go. I didn't know where to research that. I had a hard time getting started. Those are chances to go, okay, well, let me help you get started. Have another student in a collaborative environment. How did you get started? When you have that opportunity for students to interact with each other and not just you, it really is a collaborative environment that is conducive to learning. I think I saw Carolyn's hand up.
Yes, Jody, we have a really good question from Carrie Young. She
Super.
says, I would like to have students, oh my goodness, just lost her. I would like to have students give an audio video response in a discussion, but wonder about accessibility, because we're talking about all the different opportunities for students to interact and create project-based as opposed to just a text-based interaction.
Yeah.
So can you speak briefly about accessibility for these different types of collaboration?
Yeah, and that's a good question. And I understand that accessibility and equity, let's be honest, those two topics make folks a little bit nervous. They don't want to do the right thing, the wrong thing, or say the wrong thing, or offend or not include students, right? It really comes from a place of wanting to be the best that we are at teaching. When I talk about accessibility and equity and how to create learning experiences with those two things in mind, I tend to focus on universal design because universal design is something that, think about that. If I were to say, oh, we're going to talk about equity today, or we're going to talk about accessibility today. We're going to talk about universal design today and creating a learning environment where everyone can learn. Oh, cool. How are we going to do that? Right? It's the same thing though. By offering another stream for students to interact with your materials is not only meeting requirements, if that's the kind of thing that tastes better to you. But if I have a video and I have it be very small, short, and I have not only my voice, but I also have a transcript, or I have captioning, I'm meeting the requirements for accessibility, but I'm also giving my students a chance to choose how they want to engage with that particular presentation. And maybe they can't listen to the video of you speaking, but they can turn the volume down and read it because they need to listen for their child to wake up. Or they are a little hard of hearing, and so listening to it is better for them. I can tell you that every time I watch TV, it's always with captions. It drives some people crazy in my house, but for me to be able to see it helps me understand what's going on. And every single person should have a choice in how they want to engage in the material rather than it just being prescribed for them. We can talk about the requirements of those types of presentations. It's very important to keep in mind. But if a student isn't sharing it with other students, if those other students do not have accommodations on file, that's okay. But, you know, maybe you can also teach them to do captions. Maybe it's on something that everyone in the class would use. You know, having students do some of that work of co-creating the course is good for both teaching and learning. Have you ever assigned a student to create something for you? You know, like, hey, we're using Flipgrid. Can you help other students to learn how to use that? Absolutely. I mean, how often do we like to teach someone how to do something? Because doing is learning. So those are just a few of the things off the top of my head. But, you know, I think it's very, very helpful to let your students know that accessibility and equity are very important to you. And that if they notice anything in your course room that is not accessible, that they cannot access, give them a way to let you know. And that could be a Google form. It could be, I don't know. But, you know, let them know that you care and that you'll do whatever it takes for them to have access to the materials. Is that okay answer? I'm looking at Jason's face. I think he thought that was okay. Anything else?
Yeah, Jody, we've got another, this is a little bit longer question explanation from Melinda.
Yeah.
And she said, I would like to know more examples of methods for how I can increase my online presence in the classes. And she goes on to say she values the tips that you're giving, but I would like more help ideas, like the one you shared about commenting on a student that did well on a difficult assignment, for what I can and should do on my end as an instructor to increase instructor presence.
Yes, so that's a really good question. And I got to say that I can relate. Is Melinda, right? Yeah, I think many of us can relate, Melinda. You know, there's plenty of times where I go to a workshop, and when I leave it, I don't even remember what I learned or was supposed to learn. You might notice that when we do our workouts as part of the boot camp for teaching online, we have a set of outcomes. We introduce the topic. Sometimes we give material ahead of time for folks to read and get prepared. It's kind of called the flipped classroom too. And then throughout the presentation, it's not really a presentation. We have breakout rooms, we have real examples, and then we provide resources and follow up of how you can apply those things right away. When I give advice to other instructors, I base it on the community of inquiry because, yes, my personal experience right here, my educational experience is important, but it's mine. And so if I tell you or share with you what I do, it's based on my social, my cognitive, and my teaching presence. So finding what works for you can often be found amongst your own discipline experts. And thinking about how to apply the things that we're going through. In no way do I want to give you a prescription for what to do in your semester, but you can find helpful examples that may or may not work for you and your teaching style or what you're comfortable with socially, right? Part of my advice is to try one new thing, just one. Last semester, it was trying Canvas for most people, but yet maybe you or your colleagues said, oh yeah, I'm gonna try Canvas. I'm gonna use this Flipgrid, Studio, YouTube. I'm gonna try all that. We only have so much cognitive load. And the more technology that we add to that, the more technology that we ask our students to learn before they get to our discipline expertise, before they get to learning, it's distracting from your discipline. So, you know, it's, let's say, for example, I'm so bad at Excel. Oh my gosh, I'm still so bad. Your deans comment on my Excel spreadsheets. They hate them. They wish I'd take a class on Excel. But if you are teaching a class where you expect students to know Excel, you know, have a look at that and see, well, students are not performing so well on this, or they're not turning in these assignments. Why? A deficit mindset would say, oh, it's because students are lazy. They don't really want to do the work. They're not interested. But an equity mindset says all students can learn, but I need to explore what would help them learn. If they don't know how to use Excel and they're intimidated by it, they're not going to do the assignment. And that's just going to drain their cognitive load. So what can you do? You can provide them resources. You can encourage them. You can facilitate their learning. I know that's a kind of a unique idea or new idea for some instructors who are used to teaching face-to-face. But maybe you've already kind of sensed that in teaching online. It's the time you spend recording a full hour lecture or giving a presentation or a lecture, that is taking the cognitive load of students, and it's not really interacting with them. Presenting material is not interacting unless every 10 or 15 minutes you have an engaging exercise. And how do I know that? Because it's based on active learning principles and evidence-based research. You know, we're doing our best to offer more and more workshops on these very small pieces. It's very, it's not very likely that you're going to see a workshop from our department anymore that's just a tool. Come and learn how to use Flipgrid. That's my example. We just uploaded it in Canvas. It's a very, very cool tool. But it's only cool if you know how to use it and use it to complement and teach what you're trying to teach. To have a toolbox is really fantastic. But as a recent homeowner, I can tell you I only have 2 tools in my toolbox. I asked for a measuring tape for Christmas. I didn't get one. That would have gone in my toolbox. But I will get my own tools and I'll keep adding and adding and adding. So teaching is it's a skill, isn't it? It's a skill that we're always working on. So I would encourage you just to try one new thing. And maybe it's an icebreaker. Maybe it's a virtual cafe in your classroom for your students to interact with each other. But you'll notice that those are all facilitating. They're not direct instruction. It's facilitating learning. Because learning by doing is more effective than learning by listening. I guarantee some of you have already zoned out on me. And I'm trying my best. But if we had a breakout room and you could actually work with this material, it would be more meaningful to you. And I'm going to invite you at the end here to reflect on what we've shared here. And my hope is that it inspires you to think about ways and apply ways to build that community in classroom. Because the first 10 days, the first 10 minutes of your course are very, very important. I want to share this quote with you, and I'm gonna make sure it stays up here. So this is a quote from Euler. The question, I'm just gonna read it to you just for quickness sake, but the question that remains for us is this: how do we move from science and theory to practice? You've heard me mention a few articles, a few authors, Garrison, etc. Those are about theory and science, evidence-based research. So how do we move from that into practice? Like, I think that's what Melinda was asking about. The first way that we do that is make sure to recognize that we are all human beings and put that front and center, as Euler says, in the learning process. So what intrigues us? How do we feel connected? The few tools that we've given, are a good place to start, but start small. Create opportunities for students to make the connection with your course. Check in with them, even anonymously. What did you enjoy about this week? Actually get them to think about, what did you enjoy in this particular lesson? What do you have questions on? And encourage those questions, because they are here to learn. They're not expected to already know, right? So empower them, identify those skills they can build on, enhance that they interact with each other to help one another. You'll be very surprised if you give them a chance. I know that it takes a lot of, it's difficult. It's difficult to give that up. It's difficult to take away from a direct instruction. You may not feel like you're doing your part, but you really are, because you're facilitating them to go and gather what they need to accomplish the learning outcome you have for that week or for that module. And by doing that, it gives them more of a sense of pride that I found the answer. You got those, like those light bulb moments. I found the answer. It wasn't given to me. I found it. And then that is remembered for a long time. So helping students to build community, you can also bring students into that practice. An interest survey is a great way. I experimented with a lot of pedagogical practices, and I'm going to date myself here, but when Facebook first came out, you had to have a college email for that. Nobody else could use it. And I was really into technology in the classroom, and I had this idea for history that, what if I had students create a profile for someone from history? And I didn't assign them people. I asked them what their interests were. Now, it took a lot of work, but I asked them, what are you interested in? What do you see as a job in the future? Or, what do you like? And I gathered this information. And when I had a student who really liked architecture, I assigned them Frank Lloyd Wright. When I had somebody who said, oh, I really want to be a nurse, you're Clara Barton. I really like science. Oh, well, how about Marie Curie or Ben Franklin? And so then I gave them parameters for the research to where they took on the persona of that person, and they had to interact with others and answer questions like they were Ben Franklin, Clara Barton. So by doing that and giving them, I did still guide them, right? This is what we're doing, but I helped them with a person they were interested in. If I just assigned them, said, you're Abraham Lincoln, you're George Washington, you're Martha Washington, they'd be like, oh man, I got this person. So gosh, that was just such an awesome experience. But it fit with my teaching style and the tool that I had and what I wanted them to learn. And you know what that was? Is that people throughout history are regular people just like you and me. They just happen to be in the spotlight. but they have the same human frailties and expectations and failures that we all have. So looking for students to build community too, you know, if you notice that students consistently fail on an assignment, there's a reason for that. I'm gonna stay away from the topic from a distance, but for cheating, you know, there's usually a reason that students cheat. They don't come into the college willing and ready to be deceptive and cheat, right? It's often because they don't know the answers. How do we help them be confident that they know the answers? How do we help build them to that level? It could be that's a really high stakes exam too. Like, this is worth half of my grade. Well, we better not mess this up. And they may cheat.
Jody, just real quick.
Yeah.
I'm giving the 10-minute warning for Megan.
Fantastic. So I know it's a lot to take in. I hope that you have a few tools here. We can talk more offline too. You also have really great peer facilitators that can give you examples from nearly every division on campus. And we will continue to have those workshops. And please bring in your discipline expertise, because we don't know it, but we can help you with the design and the practice that has been proven effective in the online classroom. So again, looking to bring students into that and looking where they might be able to share their learning, not only with you, but with others. I'm going to skirt by that. I'm going to give you an example of what we might have done here as a model for what we're talking about. And you'll find that in our workouts too, is that we model what an effective online interaction is. I already mentioned, you know, having the objectives and that sort of thing. But if we were to have applied that to this session today, obviously we have the icebreaker. I would have liked to have had breakout sessions, you know, and put you in groups of, I don't know, 4 or 5, and then told you, make sure to assign a reporter and a timekeeper. You will have 10 minutes. The timekeeper ensures that everyone gets a chance to participate, right? Because that's important to us for our norms. And then the reporter, when we come back, they're the one who's going to share out what you as a group gathered. And if I were to send you into a breakout room, I would give you very clear instructions and a question for you to answer. I've gotten into breakout rooms before. I'm like, what are we supposed to do? Right? And it's not because I don't know how to work in a group, but I just don't know what's expected of us. So in this example, I would send you out to a breakout room and have you discuss the community of inquiry after reading about it and us interacting with it. And then I'd have you share your prior experience with the framework, from the readings we had, what intrigues you about it? Is there anything about the framework that raises questions for you? So see, it's pulling out about both positive engagement with it. Think about something you actually like. Maybe it's not coming to you right away. And then something that you have questions about. I'm gonna skip that. I do want to leave you with a final thought here. And that is that you're not alone. Last semester was an unforgettable one for many negative reasons that really just threw us into a spin of trying to do the best we could. And we all did. We did the best we could. So now it's time to learn from that and move forward. But it doesn't mean it's going to be smooth sail. So learning online and teaching online increases everybody's anxiety. It really does. This doesn't mean lowering your standards. It doesn't mean lowering the expectations for learning, but it does mean being flexible. And that doesn't mean giving extensions to everyone, but maybe reworking an assignment based on how it went last semester. Providing support is essential, not only in the student services that we have, but sending regular messages to your students, giving them an opportunity, a stream to interact with each other, giving them reminders about things really helpful. I really like that. If I get a text that I know somebody cares when I get a text and that they're reminding me when something is due. Oh my gosh, I like that so much. Hey, the boys have a doctor's appointment today at 1. Oh yeah, I forgot, thanks. So I'll make sure to be at that. And of course, teaching online can increase your stress. You're a real person. And the more that you present that, as I said, I'm not perfect, your students will respond to that. There's no reason that you should deceive them. Like if something wasn't open, you go, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. I didn't open that quiz. This is the first time I'm trying this, work with me. It will never be a detriment to them if I make a mistake. So be gracious with yourself too. We're all used to being that superstar front of the classroom, always raising your hand sort of people. That's why we're in this profession. We dig learning, but it's okay to not know the answer to some things. And it's really important to know where to go to get the help. And we're a lucky college. We have a very nice support system. So right now, just for your own purposes, before you run off and go to the next session or go to eat or whatever you're going to do, take a few moments to reflect on what you heard here. Did it inspire any new ideas? Anything that you want to look more into? And please share those with us so that we can create opportunities and other workshops to enhance those things, right? Because we're building on those skills, those teaching skills. And if you want to share any ideas with me or any of the facilitators, really want to encourage you to do so. We're here to help. And as I said, it's most rewarding when you help others. That's how all your facilitators feel. Really, they will do whatever it takes. So with that, I think I'm just going to leave you with these things. I already mentioned our sessions. Make sure you go into the faculty support hub too. We're going to keep putting things in there. We're not going to clutter it. It's not going to be a garage sale. It's going to be very organized so that it's an effective resource for you without having to play hide and seek in there. So do we have 5 minutes left?
It is 12:15 exactly.
Oh, and that's where we end. Yeah, I planned that. No. Just kidding. I hope you guys all have a fantastic day and that you don't overwhelm yourselves with too much information. Be kind to yourselves. Try one new thing this semester, and you're not doing it alone. So please reach out to us. Thank you for serving our students. Respect and admire you so much. Thank you. Bye-bye. Bye, Debay. You're on my screen. Bye, Jane, Martha.
Okay. Bye, Judy. Thank you.
Bye. Bye, Rico.